Hello and welcome to another episode of Wild of Africa on WION The World as One. This week we focus on the justice that was served to Guineans after a court in the country sentenced former military ruler Moussa Dadis Camara to 20 years in prison for crimes against humanity. The charges stemmed from one of the worst massacres in the nation's history, the killing of more than 156 people after troops opened fire at a rally held in September 2009 to demand a return to civilian rule. We'll talk about that shortly. Nigerians in Lagos and Abuja took to the streets again to continue the economic hardship protests, despite President Tinubu's plea for suspension of the demonstration. The protest, tagged Days of Rage, are mainly against Nigeria's worst cost of living crisis in a generation and accusations of misgovernment and corruption in Africa's most populous country and a top oil producer, where public officials' huge earnings contrast high poverty and hunger levels. Here's a report by our correspondent Louisa Olaniyi from Lagos.
President Bola Tinubu's economic reforms that have caused rampant inflation had come to a head in Nigeria. Angered by the president's handling of the economy, thousands thronged the streets of Abuja and Lagos. The police were waiting for them, lobbing tear gas canisters. Some officers even shot at the protesters. Dozens were killed. Then the fury turned towards the police officers, who were accused of extrajudicial murders. The president eventually had to give in and call for restraint.
Suspend any further protest and create room for dialogue, which I have always acceded to at the slightest opportunity. Nigeria requires all hands on deck and need us all, regardless of age, party, tribe, religion, or other divides.
However, that was not enough to stop the protesters. Just hours after the president's address, the protesters were back on the streets across both cities with the same vengeance and demands, and in bigger numbers.
Let him reduce price. The cost of living is too high. Let him do the right thing. Tinubu, we never hear you say anything where they better. Shall we hear me, Oga? Oga, do normal. You've not said anything that will help us, that will rather suit us. So therefore, we are not going to stop this protest. We'll keep protesting till you do the right thing.
That's not our president. He has not spoken. If he's our president, he knows what to say. Do you understand? I don't want to believe, and why you believe saying AI? No be real Nigeria president now address us. Because you know if they address hunger, you don't mention hunger for months. 7 minutes speech, that one pay me inside. You don't mention hunger. You don't talk about hunger. You have to say, no, know what we protest. Whether it is said that so we get time to play, I don't even know. Or maybe he lacks empathy.
The protests were reminiscent of the demonstrations in Kenya that forced the President William Ruto to drop the controversial tax hike bill, reshuffle his cabinet, and introduce austerity measures in government offices. The Kenyan protests were also organized online by the youth or Gen Z. Taking a cue from their East African counterparts, around 1,000 people marched peacefully in the mainland area on Thursday, chanting Tinubu Ole, using the Yoruba language for thief. Officials imposed a curfew in Kano, as well as in the northern states Yobe, Katsina, Borno and Jigawa. In Nigeria's economic hub Lagos, a few dozen protesters gathered in the Ojota area on Friday. Nigerians are struggling with high costs. Food inflation is at 40% and fuel has tripled in price since a year ago. But many people are also wary about insecurity around protests.
It's day 5 of the nationwide protests, and protesters in Lagos, Nigeria are still out here protesting, damning all consequences, not taking the president's plea to shelve the protest to heart. They say they will continue until their demands are met. We spoke about dialogue with the president as he has recommended, and they're asking dialogue with who? And most of the dialogues, most of the tete-a-tete that went about during the entire protest never saw the light of day. Will the protesters continue up until day 10? Quite a lot has gone down. Millions of naira lost in the course of the first 4 days. Arson, looting, killings, accusations and counter-accusations. And Nigerians are still on the streets pressing their demands. From Lagos, Nigeria, Louisa Olani. WION The World is One.
Lawyers for Guinea's former military leader, Moussa Dadis Camara, say he will appeal his conviction for crimes against humanity. He was sentenced to 20 years in prison on charges stemming from the 2009 massacre of more than 150 people during a pro-democracy rally in the capital Conakry. Demonstrators at the stadium were protesting against Camara's plans to run for president when soldiers opened fire on them. He had taken power in a coup the previous year. Here's a report.
This is Moussa Dadis Camara listening to the judge deliver his verdict at a court in Conakry, Guinea.
For the repression, the court sentences Colonel Claude PV to lifetime imprisonment with a security period of 25 years and issues a warrant for his arrest. Captain Moussa Dadis Camara and Colonel Moussa Tiebro Camara to 20 years of imprisonment each.
The court announced the charges that included murder, rape, torture, and kidnapping would be classified as crimes against humanity before sentencing Camara and 7 other military commanders. 4 other defendants were acquitted. The trial lasted for over 2 years. The former dictator was recaptured after a failed prison escape in late 2023. He is accused of the deadly suppression of an opposition rally at a stadium in the suburbs of the capital, Conakry, in 2009. That saw his forces kill at least 156 people and rape 109 women. Over 100 survivors and victims' relatives testified in the trial that started in 2022, more than a decade after members of Camara's presidential guard, soldiers, police and militias committed the massacre. The court ordered compensation to be paid to the victims, running from 200 million to 1.5 billion Guinean francs, that is around $23,000 to $174,000.
Since these people have been convicted and reparations have been awarded to the victims, we believe that this is a real victory for the victims. It's not over yet, because there will probably be appeals from some of the defense. Perhaps not all of them, but there will be appeals that will go on to appeal and perhaps even continue to the Supreme Court.
This is a historic trial that is part of our collective memory, part of the fight against impunity in this country. As you know, the crimes of 28 September outraged people beyond Guinea.
Defense lawyers argued that reclassifying the charges as crimes against humanity on the day of the ruling will rob defendants the opportunity to defend themselves and infringe on their right to a fair trial. Both the accused and the plaintiffs have 15 days to appeal the verdict. The trial has taken place against a background of continued repression by Guinea's military rulers of both the oppression and the media.
nous, les victimes.
We, the victims, are eagerly awaiting for justice to be done, and that those who ordered the crime are punished in contempt.
Many of the victims in the stadium massacre were shot, crushed, or knifed to death, while some of the women were dragged out from hiding and gang-raped by uniformed men over several days, witnesses said. It took several days before the families of the victims were allowed to come and collect the bodies. Many, though, never found the bodies of their relatives. Camara fled into exile after he survived an assassination attempt several months after the massacre, but returned to Guinea more than a decade later. African Bureau, WION, World is One.
A landslide triggered by heavy rains in southern Ethiopia's Wolaita area killed at least 13 people, and the number of fatalities is expected to rise. This latest landslide appeared to be less deadly than one that occurred last month in another area in southern Ethiopia, where more than 500 people were killed. Landslides are common during Ethiopia's rainy season, which started in July and is expected to last until mid-September.
The wailing and desperation in Gofa, Ethiopia was palpable. Families were mourning their kin and relatives who had succumbed to the worst natural disaster to hit the country in years.
We were brewing coffee in the kitchen when the landslide happened. When it happened, we heard a sound.
Following heavy rain, a landslide buried people in the Gofa zone in southern Ethiopia regional state on the night of July 21st. Then a second one in Gulf Brothers, who had gathered to help the following morning. The United Nations Office for the Coordination of Humanitarian Affairs said the death toll is expected to rise to up to 500 people. At least 257 people died on the day the landslide hit.
I lost 3 brothers and my father from my family. Additionally, I have lost a whole 20 family members who perished in the landslide. Those who survived have suffered injuries to the hands, legs, and eyes.
The International Federation of the Red Cross and the Red Crescent Societies has launched an emergency appeal for 6 million Swiss francs. Following a series of devastating landslides, floods and storms that have struck southern Ethiopia. The appeal will support the Ethiopia Red Cross in responding to the urgent needs of the most vulnerable communities affected by these relentless disasters. But the government ordered a stop to the search efforts, much to the dismay of the survivors.
I'm disappointed because the officials are talking about ending the search operation. My determination to keep searching is unwavering. I will stay here as long as it takes. Even if I must build my own house here, I will keep on searching. Even if his body decomposes, I will search for his bones. If I can't find his bones, I might find his coat. That will make me happy.
Prime Minister Abiy Ahmed said he was deeply saddened by the terrible loss of life, and that federal officials had been deployed to reduce the impact of the disaster. Since the onset of the disaster, the Ethiopia Red Cross Society has been at the forefront, providing emergency relief, conducting search and rescue operations, and delivering essential services to those affected. The agency says over 15,515 people, more than 5,600 individuals urgently need to be evacuated to safer areas due to the ongoing threat of further landslides fueled by incessant rains. Africa Bureau, WION, World is One.
Technology from the Netherlands is transforming flood management in flood-prone regions in Kenya. Slam dams protect communities from vast rivers and also store water for use in the dry season. After trials in Nigeria and Burundi, the technology is now being introduced to Kenya.
These large black rubber barriers are called slam dams. People living near water sources use them. Eric Njoka lives just 50 meters from the Nagari Narok River. But when the floods came, his slam dams stopped the water from reaching his home.
Hii slam dam singekuwa nayo,
If I did not have these slam dams, the loss would have been severe. I was considering the value of my property, myself and my children, and I would have suffered a loss of nothing short of 40 to 50 million shillings, which is approximately 310,000 to 390,000 US dollars. Because if you consider the investments I have made on this land, you can come in and have a look. I would have lost a huge amount of money.
The technology has another use. They can be used to store water. So once the rainy season is over, the farmer can use the slam dams as a water source for his crops. It's a convenient and simple solution in the dry season.
When it is time to store the slam dams, instead of discarding the water, he pumps it to water his crops. The crops grow, thrive, and provide food. When he exhausts water from one slam dam, we store it and move on to the next slam dam.
Slam dams made from heat-resistant rubber can store up to 8,000 liters each. Each slam dam measures 5 meters in length, 1.5 in width, and stands a meter tall. To ensure effectiveness, slam dams must be placed closely together, forming a tight-knit barrier that prevents gaps where floodwaters could potentially leak through. They have a lifespan of up to 40 years.
A slam dam is a mobile flood barrier. It is made of rubber and it is used for many purposes. Particularly in Kenya, we have used it for flood management and we are also using it now for water harvesting.
According to the government, floods caused by heavy rains between March and May this year destroyed crops on over 168,000 hectares. The National Disaster Operations Center figures show that the floods claimed 291 lives and displaced 278,000 people. Africa Bureau, WION, World is One.
Let's head to Uganda now. Access to Braille texts remains a major challenge for many visually impaired students in Africa. Slow progress in the advancement of assistive technology has led to many school dropouts. Now, a group of Ugandan developers have come up with a blind assistant app that helps read documents aloud.
"16-year-old Wayne Paida Isabella listens attentively as an instructor directs students. Each one is then handed a smartphone, some holding mobile technology for the first time. Glaucoma made her partially blind when she was 13. She is now part of a group of students undergoing digital training, learning how to use the Blind Assistant app to help them read.
We first trained them on how to use the smartphone. We found that some had not even caught it in their hands. They were so excited having it and being trained on how to operate it, and introducing the Blind Assistant application was something that was welcomed by them, since now they do not need much assistance.
According to a 2014 national census, Uganda has an estimated 250,000 visually impaired people. Around 1,500 of them are school children. With limited resources, many students have to rely on their classmates for day-to-day assistance, including reading and getting around to classes.
Our friends tend to be too busy, and time is going. By the time you want to read, everything is too much. And this app, the Blind Assistant, has come to solve all those problems. We are able to read on our own and in the time that we want.
The new smartphone app is changing the lives of visually impaired students. Designed by local company Sousa Water Harvesting, the Blind Assistant app is one of the several accessibility apps taking advantage of a smartphone's camera, mobility and connectivity. Developers say most students had no access to these technologies, so they came up with a local solution.
With the assistive technologies which has been given, the Braille Assist, they are able to scan these texts without having to translate them into Braille. So they will depend on the audio version to read what is in the text and be able to answer the question as required.
I started with digital literacy, and I learned how to call using that technology. I also learned how to write a message and send it. Then we went ahead with learning how to use internet.
Currently, smartphones are given to students for free after training. Developers hope to equip more than 1,000 students across Uganda. Africa Bureau, WION, World is One.
When Worldcharming Smart Courage decided to be a catwalk coach in Nigeria's commercial capital, Lagos, he knew he was up against stereotypes in a country that is largely conservative. But the genetics and biotechnology graduate was never deterred from pursuing his dream. Here now is his story.
With silver-colored platform stilettos strapped to his feet, Worldcharming Smart Courage is ready to work it on his office, The Runway. Worldcharming is a one-of-a-kind fashion model coach.
Yes, everybody, let's go back. Let's roll it now.
People had a lot to say to him for venturing in a female-dominated industry.
Most times you get to a situation whereby they introduce you as a coach and everybody's like, why would a man be teaching me how to walk and all that? I keep quiet, I don't reply, I don't even answer. I go on and do my job, and it's later they will come back to you and say, oh my God, you're good at what you do.
When Smart decided to be a catwalk coach in Nigeria's commercial capital, Lagos, he knew he was up against stereotypes in a country that is largely conservative. But the genetics and biotechnology graduate was never deterred from pursuing his dream. Smart, as he is known in the industry, said he took interest in fashion while in school and was influenced by his mother, who operates several fashion businesses.
Run several businesses and majorly fashion business, and that really, I would say, influenced my choices when I was growing up, because I see her look really exceptionally good, and maybe that influenced me in wanting to work with women, see them look good and carry themselves well.
Despite having trained over 3,000 women to walk with a fashionable gait, Smart has faced constant criticism for being a man in a women's industry. Nigeria is largely a conservative country, and because of cultural or religious values, there are expectations around gender roles or even careers.
I know my purpose, I know my goal, I know what I am looking for, but Nigerians do not understand. Once it does not go in line with what they think and their ideologies, you are the worst.
I've always seen his videos, the way he carries himself, the people that he's been training, and the tremendous changes that he has actually effected in people, and I wanted that for myself. So I actually reached out to him.
One of his breakthroughs was back in 2022 when he coached a Nigerian model, Tosin Adidoro, who went on to become the 4th runner-up in Miss World Tourism. With a combined followership of almost 400,000 people, Smart continues to expand his repertoire. Africa Bureau, WION, World is One.
And it's a wrap on this week's episode of World of Africa. Thank you very much for watching. Get in touch with us on all our social media platforms and tell us what you think about the show there. I'm Eric Njoka, and until next time, it is goodbye from me.
The stress of our world can take a toll on our physical and emotional health. Here, in New York's Catskill Mountains, lies a luxurious place of healing called WION Wellness Center. The WION Wellness Center provides 500,000 square feet of natural methods to manage diabetes, hypertension, chronic pain, obesity, depression, anxiety, and other conditions. We use the traditions of centuries-old natural science from India, yoga, Ayurveda, acupuncture, and naturopathy in personalized programs that help you take charge of your own health. A minimum 5-day stay is recommended for best results. Book now at yo1.com.
Namaste. Hello friends. We did Dr. Subhash Chandra show, popularly known as DSC show, for 4 years from August 2014 to August 2018. 28 states of Bharat. Of course, we reached out to all of you in 190 countries across the world. The show was very successful. Each episode was being watched by almost 25 million people every week. For past 6 years, the demand of the show has never died down. People write to us, people ask for the show to restart again. Hence, we are beginning the show once again on All Z Network, also on WION, which is the global network channel from India. Again, thank you for your love and affection. See you soon at Subhash Chandra Show.
To bring the benefits of the Subhash Chandra Show to your educational institution, teachers and students, send an invitation to Juhi Jha at yoursarthi@such.org.in. The quest for an Olympic medal has begun. History is being made at the Paris Olympics.
Manu Bhaker has created history here in Shatru.
And the history makers are speaking exclusively to WION.
I'm living my dream, and it's not like it's going to end here.
The best in the world have descended upon Paris, defying gravity and setting new benchmarks. And we are there to cover it all.